What's up, folks? This is Addy Ads, and we have a great guest this morning slash afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm in the United States, and we have a guest across the pond in the UK, in England, Matthew Steeples of the Steeple Times, and he is the editor-in-chief of that publication, a writer and investigative reporter and journalist. And we have a few minutes this morning slash afternoon to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell and this next chapter we're getting into. So thanks for joining me on this Sunday, sir.
A pleasure to be with you. And, I think you do. Your book is an insight into a different way of covering trials. And I think it's very, very good.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate the citation on a recent article you did covering the relationship kind of between Bobby Sternheim, Nicholas Tartaglione, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. And
I think it's very interesting that you brought that up because nobody else talks about it. The fact that this man was a cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein, and then his lawyer becomes the same lawyer as Ghislaine Maxwell, which, that is a very curious route of things to happen. And he's still not got his trial. His trial has not really resulted in anything. He's not convicted, is he, at this stage?
Yeah, it seems to be getting delayed unnecessarily.
Okay, COVID is one thing, but we can't use the COVID excuse forever, can we?
Right. And they mentioned the death penalty. I read in your article as well. But it is interesting because, as mentioned, he has ties to both being an ex-cop, law enforcement, and the criminal world as well. So
I found what you did with your video very interesting, and I didn't know about that beforehand. Really, you highlighted something that has definitely not been reported on in Britain. I can say that.
Oh wow!
The British news don't have any conversation about this man.
Interesting. Okay.
He's not a relevant person here, but obviously this weekend they've talked about Ghislaine has sold her the house that she lived in with the photograph has been sold again for nearly £1 million more than she sold it for last time, which shows that was a complete sham in the way it was transferred. That's about the only thing that's going on with her right now here, and we await the 28th of June, and obviously you were there for the Scotty David character, and I don't know what your views are on him, but I think that this man is a distraction.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, can you expand on that?
I would say the fact that the things that he's come up with as the man who you spoke with, I can't remember his name, but the gentleman who he actually tweeted that it was this character was, the things he came out with in court were just not. It didn't show him to be anything bad. He definitely is totally naive, and his behavior was incorrect without a doubt. But it doesn't mean that the entire case falls on that.
Yeah, I agree. I could see that him being, just kind of incompetent and maybe a little bit desiring of attention as well.
He has sought attention subsequently, but I think at the time, I don't think what he's done is relevant to destroying this verdict.
Sure. Yeah. I've talked to quite a few people about it, and even just read people's takes on it. It seems the majority of people, or consensus, does seem to be the unlikely that the government changes their mind on this. But of course, nothing.
But if she were to have a subsequent trial, I think it'd actually work out worse for her.
Oh wow, really?
Because I think the situation now is people have seen her for what she is, and I don't. It'd be much harder to get a jury together. Unfortunately.
Yeah. definitely. I'm surprised they found one in the first place. But do you want to talk a bit, Mr. Steeples, about your outlet, when you started that, and when you got into the Epstein saga? What was the hook point for you?
Well, my involvement is I did meet Robert Maxwell, her father, long ago, and I know a psychiatrist who is involved with the family as well, and I know many people connected to her. And weirdly, I was one of the last people to see Ghislaine in Britain, but I didn't know I'd seen her because I didn't actually know her. I was in the same restaurant as her on the last day she was ever seen in Britain. And she was at a charity event for trafficked women. It was a
Oh,
car rally organized by rich women, including Paris Hilton was present, and people like Caroline Stanbury, all these socialites, Nettie Mason, who was Pink Floyd, one of the Pink Floyd's wives, and that was who she was driving a car with, and we were in the very same restaurant on the same day. And
interesting.
I didn't understand what this car rally was about at the time. It was called Cash and Rocket, and this lady who runs this, Mrs. Brangstrupt, I can't remember her Christian name. She runs a rally driving cars from London to Monaco to help trafficked women, and Ghislaine was part of that rally. And that day she'd been to Buckingham Palace as well to meet Prince Andrew.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
And
that is my weird connection. Is I have a photograph of the car that they drove in because I liked the car. It was a very rare Alfa Romeo.
oh, okay, okay.
And I
Interesting.
weirdly had that picture, and the Daily Mail have used that picture many times. The Daily Mail use a lot of my. I was the person who got the picture of the bathtub, which nobody else believed was big enough for Prince Andrew and his victim to be in. So I have been involved in quite a few of these different chapters of this story.
And how did you procure that picture?
Because I knew who the estate agent who was selling the house was,
Oh, okay, okay,
and
excellent.
um, they did bother to take a picture of the bathroom, which was very stupid of them, I would say. to expose that picture is the Daily Mail's previous articles said the bathroom was X by X, and it was Y by Y, and it was much bigger. So
Okay,
the bathroom is perfectly big enough for anything to have gone in there.
sure. Yeah, I recall that being an argument at one point in time. Did the Daily Mail pay you for the usage of your media?
The Daily Mail have paid me a fee for using my article, yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. That's good to hear.
But
And
in the past, they've never paid me anything. But this is the first time they've ever paid for anything.
oh, did they plagiarize before?
Yes.
Okay, and you still haven't been compensated for that?
No, I don't. I don't normally expect to be, but on this occasion, I made a fuss. Yes, because I wanted it. I wanted actually to be linked to and be credited, and they weren't prepared to do that. So I said, "Well, you're going to have to pay for this."
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
And
Well,
they have accepted that they took my article and they used my article was there first. So yes, I was
oh,
their source.
okay. And
I'm simply a source. It doesn't matter whether you get paid or not. It's about whether you are a genuine source, and I was a source. I found the story; they didn't.
okay. So
Their
you
journalist did not credit me for the work I did. That's
mm, yeah, it's unfortunate. So you see yourself both as a researcher and writer, publisher, editor.
well, I'm a writer. I write about things that I find interesting, and Ghislaine is only one of many subjects I write about.
Okay. Can you share with the audience what else you cover and
I
how
write
that's
about
developed?
the royal family in Britain. Um, I write about Jeremy Bamber, who is a person who I believe to be in prison for the wrong reasons. I write about a man called Mark Alexander, who was accused of murdering his father. He's in prison. I don't believe he's guilty of what he is accused of. And a man called Terry Waite, who was a prisoner. Well, he was, sorry, not a prisoner. He was a hostage in Beirut. He got me onto this particular topic. I helped campaign for justice for various different people.
Okay, excellent. And when again did you start the Steeple Times?
I started in 2012. I'd been involved in a lawsuit which was to do with Brexit, ultimately in 2016 later. But well, it began with 2012 with a lady called Catherine Mayer, Lady Mayer, who is now Baroness Mayer. I helped expose what she was doing with her charity. I won't go into too much detail about it, but her husband was the ambassador to British ambassador to America, and she ran a charity which, frankly, charity began at home, in my view. That's where I'll leave it at that on that one, and then. I wrote about that, and then I started this blog. I didn't know what a blog was, and I began from there. And then I got into more and more different issues. And weirdly, lately, obviously, Ghislaine has become the main issue.
Sure, yeah. And looking back at that time when your paths crossed with her, did you know at the time she was connected to Jeff Epstein, or was that some time in the
I've
past
never knowingly
or later?
met Mr. Epstein.
Okay.
Like I never knowingly met Bernie Madoff, and my friends were very involved with Bernie Madoff, and I do think those two were very connected, which is more interesting than most people don't know about this yet. But that's what I'm writing a book about. I'm looking into the relationships of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the people who funded those people. I think Robert Maxwell is more important. You know, where is the missing £500 million that went from the pensioners? These poor pensioners had their £500 million stolen. And that is what actually matters in this world, is there are many other victims that you and I don't even talk about at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
There are poor pensioners who never got their pension.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And
You know,
not
if you're somebody who paid into your pension fund whilst you were working and then you never got anything, what about you? They matter. They're victims just as much as all of these poor, unfortunate ladies who have been abused. And I speak to some of those ladies, and I speak to one victim in particular because she's a friend of mine. She's the British victim of Ghislaine. And she was married to somebody else I know, and it's appalling what was done to those people. But the victims of Robert Maxwell, and what you have to remember is Jeffrey Epstein met Robert Maxwell before Ghislaine met Robert Maxwell. Sorry, we met Epstein.
Okay.
So Ghislaine, why was Jeffrey Epstein at the top table at the memorial lunch for Robert Maxwell? There's a question to you. Why was he there? You wouldn't be at the top table unless you were an important person. Sat between Ghislaine and her mother.
Wow.
And that is a very, very, very important thing. Follow the money.
Indeed.
And I know some people say don't follow the money, but I always follow the money.
No, yeah, I agree, Mr. Steeples, and I did not know that, and not to mention the victims of the Towers financial scheme. You know,
Well,
uh,
Epstein he was part of another Ponzi scheme. Yes, we know
yes,
that. But what,
yep,
the taxi driver who became a teacher, and then he becomes a financier, and then Ghislaine says, I can't even afford my knives and forks. I can't even afford to pay for that. And then a year later, she's living in a $10 million house. Who who paid for this? Where did this money come from? 1994. My former assistant, um, her house was used to survey Ghislaine's house in South Kensington, not the house that everybody else talks about now. The previous house, which was in Stanhope Mews East, that house was used to watch Ghislaine. The Metropolitan Police surveyed the house, and Channel 4 came to me 2 years ago, and they said, we want to do a program about this, and they knew the name of the building. I did not mention the name of the building in my article, so they got it from somebody else somebody else in the building whose flat they'd used to watch the same house. This woman was already under surveillance, but because of her connections, she was able to get away with what she did.
right, and that was 94. You said.
That was 1994.
Okay, okay.
So
So already,
that's only 3 years after the death of her father.
and the
It was
accusation
already
was
being watched then.
right. It was because of a brothel she was connected to. No.
The house was allegedly some kind of brothel, yes.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Allegedly, yes.
Awesome. And just got a few minutes left here, Mr. Steeples. I want to be respectful of your time. What other, high points or highlights, stuff you want to cover with regards to the Epstein Maxwell network? And
Well, I
if you
think
want to,
it's very interesting what's going on with her husband. I think that's an interesting matter. What's he doing now? The submarine pilot. I think he's a person of consequence.
do you think there's something much deeper there?
Well, there must be, yes. But he's chosen to get rid of her, supposedly. He never turned up to the court, did he? You were there. You actually you were able to be there. I wasn't able to be there, but I find him very, very curious because of his submarine license, and there was a submarine docking station on that island, and let's look at who was trafficked from where and how they were trafficked and who's the involvement with what. But I think Scott Borgerison is somebody of consequence and relevance, and I don't know what, but equally, for me, Oceana, the charity she was involved with, which was, it won't mean much to you, but in Britain, our Prime Minister's wife worked for that charity.
Oh, wow.
I don't think the Prime Minister's wife had any involvement with her. Probably never ever met her, but it's all very curious how all these people, you join up the dots, and you're very good at doing these maps, aren't you?
Yeah,
A map of Oceania and Boris Johnson, Carrie Johnson, Ghislaine, they all come up together.
and didn't Boris Johnson's sister write an article and kind of on behalf of
Rachel wrote an article for the Spectator, and I do know her father, Boris's father, and he's involved in the charity I was involved with, yes, she said, oh, you have to feel a back squeak of pity for her. I don't feel any pity for Ghislaine and myself. I think Ghislaine Maxwell is a disgraceful deviant, and that I call her the mucky madam has offended the this man who's called Jay Beecher, who he's one of their biggest supporters. He has some kind of website where he supports them, and I'm not afraid to speak out about these people. I think it's Ghislaine has done terrible things. I know people I have friends who are her friend, and they all say, if you were in a room with her, you'd actually get on with her. She's a lovely lady. I think what she's done is appalling, and she should pay for her crimes. And I don't believe in all the conspiracies. I think Mr. Epstein is dead. I'm not going to go down the route of saying he's anything other than dead. But these two people blackmail people, and there's still a lot of people out there who should be called to account for the crimes that they have committed. And be that Donald Trump or Bill Gates and I personally like Bill Gates. I have nothing against the man. There are people like Bill Clinton. They all need to account for what their involvement was with this. I think there's too many people out there who have been able to get away with the things that they have. There are other people who were the abusers in this situation.
Definitely. And do you have just a couple minutes left here, Mr. Steeples? Do you have thoughts on Lady Hervey, Victoria, I think her name is?
Well, Lady Victoria Harvey is somebody who has been rejected by lots of people. She was rejected by Prince Andrew. He didn't want her. She was rejected by Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't want her. Lady Victoria Harvey is somebody who used my name to gatecrash parties in Los Angeles. She's told a lot of lies about a lot of things, and frankly, her underwear shop in Knightsbridge was a disaster. She left £350,000 of debt there. Lady Victoria Harvey is someone who should just hold her head in shame. She's a disgrace.
Wow.
I'm very direct about her. I don't like Lady Victoria Harvey. And Lady Victoria Harvey comes from a family who were abolitionists against the slave trade. And I exposed her in 2020 for saying, "Fuck Black Lives Matter." And I exposed her, and I took photos. I've got the screenshots, and the Daily Mail used that as well. I didn't get paid for that one. I didn't want to get paid. I don't want to get paid by anybody, but I do my own work. But she is somebody who, my dear old friend, Sarah Palmer Tompkinson, who's sadly dead, great, the great friend of Prince Charles, a decent lady. She said she's a right fucking snob.
Wow.
She's a piece of rubbish who nobody in their right mind would have any respect for. I don't like Lady Victoria Harvey. She's a liar and she's a cheat, and she's insulted these poor victims. Those poor people do not need people like her insulting them.
She did seem to be coming out against Virginia.
Now she's moved on. As you see, she's now attacking people of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine, she said they're bombing themselves. She's a conspiracy theorist. She's a nutter.
Wow.
She needs help. I would say go and seek a safe space, Victoria. That's where you belong.
And where can people find you, Matthew Steeples? Where can people support you?
Oh, you can read the steepletimes.com. That's where I am. That's I'm there, and I think the work you're doing is great, and you're fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
And I may have been a bit controversial in what I've said about Lady Victoria, but honestly, there is no room in this world for people who shame victims. And in any story, I always say, remember when people talk about a murder case, they say, they name the murderer. You should always name the victim. The victim is the important person. Virginia, I will say, is the important person, because she actually brought this to the fore. And you've spoken with some of these people like Maria Farmer, and good. They're good people, and they're the people who should be remembered. It's not never remember. Ghislaine gets too much attention.
Yeah. Well said, Mr. Steeples. I'm hoping we can do this again sometime soon. I know you have an appointment to get to. People want to support me. You can find this video on rockfin.com/addyads. Audio everywhere. Podcasts can be listened to on the Epstein Files. Stay frosty, folks.
I hope to talk to you again soon, and thank you for your kind invitation.
Of course, sir. Of course. Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.